на Нов Български университет по въпросите на реконструкция на жилищните квартали. По-специално случая, който той ще разгледа, ще бъде в Глазго, Шотландия. Може би две-три думи за него да кажа преди това. Той е дългогодишен преподавател в университета в Улстър, като освен това взема поредица важни позиции в системата на английската, по-скоро на жилищната политика в Великобритания. Бил е президент на тъй наречения Chartered Institute of Housing, което е професионалната организация на всички експерти в Великобритания, се оказа и че извън Великобритания, която така поддържа, лицензира, поддържа професионалното ниво на всички тези експерти. И освен това е професор, гост-професор в Хонг-Конг и в Букурещ, защо не, и един ден в Нов Български университет. Така че отдавам думата. So I just introduced you briefly.
You'll probably find that when you listen to English people, they speak differently to me, because I'm actually from Ireland. And if any of you have heard of Belfast, yes, I'm assuming most of you speak English. And if not, then just read my lips and we'll see how we get on. But I do speak with a different accent, so I'll try and speak slowly if I can. But sometimes I get excited and get carried away. And I have to keep looking at the camera as well. So anyway, I'm delighted to be here. This is my first time in Sofia. And I've had a lovely walk around the city centre this morning. Really nice. So, unfortunately I'm only here until tomorrow, but I hope I will be back, because we have an agreement now between our universities to continue our exchanges, and we have two of your students with us at the moment studying in Belfast. So this is my email address, and that's my Twitter account if anybody tweets. I'm not sure whether you're big into tweeting in Bulgaria, but in the UK a lot of people tweet and they say things. Sometimes it's very difficult. Okay. What I want to speak about today is regeneration, and basically to give you a bit of background about the UK, and in particular about large housing estates and problems that we've had in the past. Right across the United Kingdom, including Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And we've had sort of very large housing estates that what we would have called were difficult to let. People didn't want to live in them. Some people refer to them as sink estates, or estates where people really had lost hope and value, and people felt socially excluded. So for many years the UK government has tried to regenerate those estates and to actually reverse the process of decline and encourage people to live in them and to actually utilise the buildings. Now, I know most of you are architect students, if not all, and sometimes there's a major criticism which I mentioned yesterday in the 1950s and 1960s in England and in the UK about what they called architectural determinism, where architects decided how you should live, and architects built the housing for social housing for people in low-income groups. So they built these nice housing estates on the outskirts of cities. Most of the big cities in England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, all of the social housing is located on the outskirts, on the very periphery. But they didn't realise that these people didn't have cars, because they had cars. And of course these were beautiful, nice, well laid out housing estates. And also they built these high-rise. I know that many people in Europe actually like high-rise blocks, but in the UK they didn't. High-rise blocks never really became, or high-rise buildings weren't very popular, and particularly for social housing. So what I'll end up today is I want to show you a video of Glasgow recently demolishing 70 of their high-rise blocks. After years and years of trying to get rid of them, they finally blew them up. If you know what I mean by that, they exploded them. And coming from Belfast, my former student is now chief executive of Glasgow, and he grew up in explosions all the time, and now he blows up all the buildings. The solution get rid of problem housing, but not always a solution. So let's begin with regeneration. Let's begin with regeneration, and it's an often used concept, but we call it slippery. It's very hard to define, and it can refer to urban regeneration, the whole sort of cities, or it can refer to community regeneration, creating communities. Big issue around the UK has been the sense of loss of communities. In the 1970s, lots of redevelopment went on where housing was demolished. Very poor housing that was built at the beginning of the 20th century were all demolished. But what happened was that it also demolished communities and people living. My background is social sciences, so I actually deal with people and how they actually live and use the dwellings. You design them, but we actually determine how people might want to live in those dwellings, and we do that by asking them, what would you like? As opposed to telling them, this is what you should have, because it's great. And again, you know, back to the architectural determinism, where the architects would have built a nice theatre at the bottom of the housing estate. People don't want a theatre, they want a pub to drink in. They want a bingo hall, they don't want a theatre, they don't want a, you know. And that was the difference, and that's what caused a lot of grief at the time. And it's really, something, I'm mentioning that again, I mentioned it flippantly, but really, it's something that's very important, because in the last 20 to 30 years, the whole push has been towards involving tenants, involving people who rent properties, involving people in having a say about how they should live and what their community should be, and basically them living and gelling and sort of bonding together rather than dispersing people out into the peripheries of cities. So it can be, you know, regeneration can involve a number of sort of things. As mentioned, it could be urban, it could be for a whole city, it could be for a whole town, it could be sort of about communities and about bringing communities or bringing heart or life back into small areas. And many of the programmes in the past in the UK has been very much led by public bodies, and social housing organisations have been seen as major agents to actually drive community regeneration and to drive the regeneration of areas. And but really the broad aim is to improve the quality of life and the local economy. So there's a number of subcomponents regarding regeneration. You've economic regeneration, basically referring to programs aimed at improving employment, including training, job placement, internships, business development, the provision of business premises, encouraging employment into areas. Because after all, many of our large post-war housing estates or interwar housing estates that were built, basically many of them had very high levels of unemployment and people that felt socially excluded from the rest of society. And this is about trying to encourage sort of employers to come into areas, to encourage local employment, encourage local education, to upskill people and give them a sense of purpose of living in a certain area. And then of course you have them from creating the economic generation right through to social regeneration. Very hard to pin down what is social regeneration. But improving people's skills, giving people self-confidence and a sense of security and well-being. I'll come back to this word well-being at the end, because this is something now that the UK government is driving, is that you have to not only increase someone's well-being in an area, particularly housing associations, that's what they're tasked with. You're not just building housing, you're actually increasing people's well-being or their lives. You're improving your lives, but you must measure that. You must show how you're doing that. And indeed, legislation was just introduced last year compelling housing associations, who are our main drivers of social housing, and in some cases private housing as well, and compelling them to measure how their social impact on areas. Is everyone with me so far? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And physical regeneration is again, obviously, something which you'd be very keen about, is improvements to housing and the environment with the joint aim of improving living conditions, improving confidence. So if you have particularly bad areas, it might be best to demolish them. rather than letting them wait. You know, we had a big shift as well in the 60s and 70s from redevelopment, from demolishing areas and dispersing people into new housing and different and sort of unsettling communities. We moved away to rehabilitation, keeping people in their communities and refurbishing their dwellings as opposed to knocking them down. But in some cases people will argue that maybe in some areas you do need to, and obviously in Glasgow they did, which we'll come to later.
Next.
Yeah. So urban regeneration policy, it's very much been, the state has driven that in the UK. Central government, coming from Westminster, London, basically responsible for setting the strategic policy agenda and providing the funding. And then local government has assumed the operational responsibility of that, of policy and programmes, how they operate the strategic agenda that central government sets. Now, since 1998, we have had what we call devolution. We have a new government set up. We have one in Scotland, one in Wales, and one in Northern Ireland. Now, the Northern Ireland one's a bit more rockier than the rest of them. They keep falling out, and they keep threatening to shoot each other. But besides that, they're actually okay. You know, it's still going. It's funny enough. But the Scottish one is interesting because you all know that Scotland is having a vote of independence in September, I think it is. And I'm actually running a conference there in Glasgow 3 weeks before the vote on independence. That'll be interesting. And if you think you can't understand my accent, really, you hear some really broad Scottish accents, you'll know all about it then. But you know, but there's been a big sort of, in many ways, a concern that why Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and even the north of England, why are they having all these policies being directed to them from the south of England? I mean, London and the southeast of England are like a different country compared to the rest. I mean, property prices are rocketing. I mentioned some figures yesterday about the borough of London and Kensington, about the billions of pounds it's increased in value in one year, and the same in Westminster. But in the north, in Newcastle, Liverpool, Manchester, right up the northeast, right around Hartlepool, Sunderland, Leeds, all sort of areas, major areas of deprivation, and right into Scotland as well. So, you know, there is this concern, but why can't we determine our own destiny, and why can't we actually decide what we should do rather than listen to legislation coming from central government? So big argument between central and local government. And the urban problems have become that it's much more multifaceted than just one thing. It's not about bad or improving living conditions by refurbishing housing. It's like putting a sticking plaster on a sore that maybe needs more than that. That you need sort of to really drill down and maybe remove what was there in the first place, as opposed to just plastering over it or putting on some paint on some building. So a wider range of agents have now been brought into the policy arena. So what they're saying is, let's work together, let's have multi-agency cooperation in trying to regenerate areas and regenerate housing estates. So the logic behind this move is that urban problems can be addressed more effectively via people putting their resources together. Not just one agent driving the whole thing. You will know, I'm sure it's the same in Bulgaria with government. You have different departments that work different ways. They don't listen to each other. No matter what they say, they'll talk. I mean, Tony Blair talked about joined up. I was at a seminar last week in Belfast, and the director of the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, which is our big social housing organisation, he turned around. I have a great idea. What about joined up government? What about people working together? And I said I heard that 25 years ago, you know, and this was a new idea by a young director coming in, you know. Oh, you know, read your books and go back a bit and read your history. This has been thought of before. So, you know, how do you actually get agents to pull together? That's the difficulty. You will find that in government agencies or public agencies, or even semi-public private agencies, they will not pull together unless it's in some sort of interest of theirs as well. But if they see the outcomes that are actually benefiting them, then they may well do that. And but there's just been emerging consensus right through the 90s and the 2000s, or the noughties as we call them, and the need for a multi-agency approach, so people coming together to actually tackle socially excluded neighbourhoods. And this has to go along with the community participating in what you do, consulting with people, asking them what do you want here.